Welcome to Wellness Interrupted.
Where real wellness meets real life and sometimes real chaos.
We're Katie and Ryan, married couple, fitness lovers, parents, and business partners who have been through it all. We've lost 80 pounds between us, had a baby, and more than a few awkward conversations.
This podcast is your behind-the-scenes look to how we live out wellness individually and as a couple. From workouts and nutrition to mindset, relationships, and showing up for each other even when life gets messy.
Each week, we're pulling back the curtain to share what actually is working for us, what isn't, and how we're figuring it out together.
So whether you're on your own health journey, navigating a relationship, or just trying to get 1% better each day,
you're in the right place, so let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Wellness Interrupted. We're Katie and Ryan, your hosts, and today we're talking calorie counting, macro tracking, food guilt, and everything in between.
And we are in a new space already in episode 3. We've upgraded, but it's just another room in our house. So
upgraded to my office.
It's for my back. It is the best place we could be because I was sitting on that bed and I felt like I was just crinked the whole time.
I know, and I feel like I could tell the torture in you, but we were like, well, this is the only space. But
I was sweating during those first 2 episodes.
I know, it's a lot of ab work trying to stay steady on the bed. So hopefully this will be a little better, and maybe one day we'll upgrade to a nice space.
We'll see. This works.
Or just freshen it up a little.
Yeah, I like it. And we both had leg day today, and it was brutal.
So rough.
Brutal, which I feel like is mentally a good segue into the topic for today, which is eating and how you eat, because after a day like today, both of us needed to eat a ton, and we did.
I mean, Ryan wanted to hit the treadmill after, and I was like, how long do you need? Because I don't think I can last more than maybe 5 minutes on here.
I just did 15 today for your sake, so you're welcome.
Thank you.
We both have very different general philosophies on food and tracking, and they cross over sometimes, but I think it's a huge question that people ask themselves and hear different opinions on all the time is, do I track my food? How do I track it? And what will actually get me good results? And you've experienced this in many different forms through your journey. You've probably done both at different times and you've gotten different results. So today we're going to talk all about that. We're going to talk about if you should be tracking, if you shouldn't. Our situations are a little bit different, so I think we each have a unique perspective on this.
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely have experienced it all. I've done all the different styles of tracking, and I've had good and bad experiences. So I think both from my own unique perspective, but then also as a certified personal trainer, a sports nutritionist, being able to add a little spice to what I think is going to be the most helpful to help guide all of our listeners into really understanding what's going to be best for them.
So let's clear the deck first. What are we talking about when we say tracking your food? We are talking about tracking your macronutrients. Mm-hmm. So your calories at the high level, then your proteins, your carbs, your fats.
Yes.
What else do people need to know about tracking macros in general? Anything?
I think one of the most important things that people undervalue is the fact that we all do have kind of a baseline of where we need to be as individuals for those macros. And then depending on your specific goals, they might vary too. So it's not as easy just to say, eat 1,200 calories a day like we did 10 years ago where we thought that was the answer. If you're trying to not only lose weight, but feel good or maybe see changes in your body composition, your physique, we're going to need to get a little bit more specific.
Right. So need to establish a baseline. What is called a TDEE, stands for total daily energy expenditure.
Look at, is it weird? It turns me on a little when Ryan starts talking fitness to me now.
Fitness to me. So we establish the baseline, right? That gives us, based on your age, your height, your current weight, it's going to give us a baseline for how many calories a day your body is burning. And from there, then it's just math.
Well, I think that's one thing most people don't even think about is that just at rest, doing nothing, your body is working to keep you alive and to function and to do all the magical things that are going on inside.
And it gives you a little weight loss bonus, right? Even if you're not doing a workout, it's still working to burn those calories. So it's not like, I think some people think, I have to burn off with exercise all of these calories I'm eating.
Right.
Oh, wow, I only burned 200 calories on the treadmill. How am I ever going to do that?
Yeah.
But your body's working for you on its own.
Absolutely. And so I think that's really understanding that is the key to kind of even getting started. So one thing I think is really important because, like I said, I've gone through these different waves in my journey of tracking, being totally all about tracking, anti-tracking, intuitive eating. And I think a lot of women go between those two, like emotionally and physically, between being like, I want to track and know everything that's going on in my body, and maybe to an unhealthy obsessive time, but then also to this intuitive eating, which personally and professionally, I believe without the right education can be really detrimental to someone's goals.
What is intuitive eating for somebody who doesn't know?
So really the idea of intuitive eating is just eating what you feel like. So learning to listen to your body and know if you want to eat something or don't, or if you're hungry or not, which in and of itself is not a bad idea. But if you don't have the right education and tools to really know what your body needs to fuel it, what is good for your body, what's going to make you feel good. Sometimes I might be like, oh, I want to eat 20 Oreos, but like that's not going to leave me in a good place.
Okay, we'll get in more into that, but that's just kind
Yes.
of the two extremes that people tend to eat in. Depending on your goals, both of these can work. Both methods can work for somebody, and also depends on your mental state.
Absolutely.
Because there are pitfalls and there are benefits to both serious macro tracking and intuitive eating.
Yes.
And sometimes, even though one might be better for somebody in terms of their results, it may not be better for them mentally. And that's important too, right? We have to think about that. But I think everyone should know the facts of what you can get from both.
Right, because I think at the end of the day, we are not just physical beings. Like we are emotional, spiritual people. And I think that we have to take that all into account when we're going into any new routine in order to get the best out of it so that it can be something that's sustainable for us.
And hopefully this episode is really helpful for people because you and I both have attempted weight loss and or muscle gain with both methods.
Yes.
And we've had different results both times personally. So I want to make sure we can share our experience with each, what happened during those times, and what we think now, because it does evolve, right? And, you know, like you said, I think Katie from 10 plus years ago, starting, you know, Love So Fitness and getting everything rolling, had an opinion at that time, which is not necessarily the opinion today. And that's okay.
Yeah, you know, on that,
our opinions might change.
I know, and
that
it's wild. My Goals Gang group, that's my Instagram subscription group of girls. We do these live workshops every month, and I was just talking to them about the fact that for a while I feel like I've been scared to like allow myself to have a different opinion and to share that, because you get kind of trapped in like, oh, this is how I've always thought. And it's a really healthy thing to be able to change and evolve.
I mean, I have such strong feelings on this, because I think that not just for this topic, but I really feel that people get so roasted for flip-flopping or for changing their opinion on something. And I get it. Someone hears somebody say something that they trust, and then they hear them say something different, and they feel like that's broken trust. But to me, it's just evolution, and that's okay. Right? We should be able to do that as long as we can acknowledge and put our hand up and say, hey, I've evolved on this topic and my feelings have changed. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's actually a sign of maturity and development.
Yes.
Versus like you have some agenda for wanting to change.
Yeah, so I think that it's important as we get into this conversation to not only kind of continue to clarify what each of these things is, tracking macros versus just tracking calories versus if it fits your macros, and an intuitive eating, but also really share our journey. So I can go first, I guess.
Yeah, so when the 45-pound weight loss transformation that most people know you from, what happened during that experience for you? Was that you tracking macros? Was that you more intuitive eating? How did that process go that got you those results at that time?
Yeah, so it's interesting because my life prior to that, for years and years and years, since high school, was counting calories. So strictly like I, would read every magazine. It was like 1,200 calories is a magic number to lose fat. So I would just count calories. I did Weight Watchers, points, the whole thing. So it
magazines loved like the specific thing that everyone should do. One size fits everyone.
100%. So it didn't matter to me what I was eating as long as it was in those calories. And although I'd lose weight for times, like I've shared so many times, I would never be able to stick to it. Things would always change. I'd gain the weight back and I would be eating garbage. So I felt like garbage because I'd have all the sugar-free candies that were like no calories. And
But were you tracking that?
I would track that. Yeah. So I went
Wow.
through phases of tracking that. So this is not how I lost 45 pounds. Sorry, I'm giving a little prior story.
Okay.
This was the before I lost 45 pounds. So I would track it. I had the little card, the slider card. This was before Weight Watchers had an app. I did the whole thing for a million years on and off cycling because it
Okay.
never was consistent. So lose all the weight, gained all back because that was a crazy way to live.
This is before I knew you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
before
yeah.
you knew me. Then when I started my weight loss journey, when I really finally was like at this place, and this where you talking about the emotion is so important, where I felt broken, like I was so tired of all the craziness. That's when I really started leaning into intuitive eating. And I was at a place where I understood how food made my body feel and I really paid attention to it. And I really started to like learn and educate myself because I became passionate about it, about the different foods I needed and about proteins and veggies and fiber. And
What was the bigger push that made you change? Was it the food making you feel unhealthy, or was it the mental load of the tracking? Was there one that made you shift on this?
at the time, I think it was the mental load of the tracking.
Interesting.
But I think that in combination with the never feeling like I could do it, never feeling like it got me anywhere long term, because it was so stressful to not only the style of tracking I was doing, but I think coupled with how, can I say shitty on here? How horrible I felt all the time. I was like, this is like, I can't do this. So I think it was a combo of
Well,
the two.
because there are people that would say, as long as you're tracking the macros and the calories, you can pretty much eat whatever you want
yeah.
as long as you're in a deficit, which factually is not incorrect, I
Right.
suppose. But I'm guessing what you found was what many find is that, yes, but there's a slippery slope, because when you eat whatever kind of foods you want, there's also a level of addiction,
100%.
sugar addiction, and
Cravings go up, sugar addiction, health issues, insulin, all of these problems. And as someone with hypothyroidism, I think it enhanced a lot of my symptoms and health issues.
And we'll talk about food creep. And
Yeah.
I think that food creep is much more prevalent when you introduce certain foods into your diet.
Definitely. So yeah, really getting into that time where I lost the 45 pounds, it was much more intuitive. It was me actually eating healthy whole foods, stopping fast food, because before I was counting calories, but I was going through the drive-through because it fit in there. Mm-hmm. So it was cutting out fast food, eating whole foods, starting to eat fibers and proteins, and pay attention to how the foods made me feel. That's when I really started to notice the gluten and dairy and having some issues with those. So it was a very huge shift for me, physically and mentally and emotionally. I will say, because I did no tracking really, maybe a little bit in the beginning just to kind of understand how much food I needed, but no real tracking through that process, it went a lot slower than it could have,
Right.
even in a healthy way. It could have gone much faster and still been really healthy, maintainable weight loss, but I think that's what I needed at that season. All right, so that was a while ago, but you just recently obviously lost a ton of weight, and you did it very differently than me.
Yeah, so I'll go back before this most recent weight loss. Prior to when we met, I was somebody who never tracked food at all.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest with you. I unintentionally was intuitive eating for pretty much my entire life. And when I was younger, that meant I stayed pretty slim, but I was mostly skinny fat at that time. And then once we met, I think I started to really clean up the foods that I ate and kind of understood portions a bit better. But that was mainly through you, as you became, a trainer and you really started to develop this whole lifestyle. Mm-hmm. But I think the interesting point was, for me, realizing that I was just like a piggyback eater, is what I'll call it.
Okay, yeah.
Is I just said, okay, Katie's eating this and that food's good and healthy. I'll just eat what feels like my appropriate size portion of that.
Yeah.
And I think for the longest time, that just had me constantly bouncing up and down in weight. Mm-hmm. I look back at photos now as I've gone through this most recent journey and I go, oh, I was fairly slim there. Oh, I gained weight there. I got slim again.
Yeah.
But that was not intentional. I was never thinking about it.
Right.
And I think that's probably what a lot of people experience, right? Is just like these ups and downs, these bouncing around of weight, and you don't feel like you have any control over it. And for me, as somebody with my type of personality, which is very type A, and I want to be in control of my life, that was one area that I never felt like I could be in control of, and I just didn't really know how to, despite you doing all the things you did. The same rules don't apply. The same calories don't apply for me.
Right.
And when I was just guessing off the top of my head, I think that made it really, really difficult.
Well, I think it means sometimes you were under eating for your body and sometimes you were overeating for your body. And, I think that's where when you don't have a true understanding. And I think for me, I was so terrified of going back to the mental place that I associated with tracking. So even when you got started and you were like tracking stuff in this more recent journey, which I know you want to share.
Yeah.
I was a little hesitant at first because I'm like,
yeah,
I know where I was at there and it was not a good place.
And that's fair. Can we agree though that regardless of if you can handle a long tracking period, that doing some level of food measuring for portions, some level of tracking for even, and I say this on Instagram a lot, track for even just 1 week.
Yes.
Or even just a few days.
Yeah.
Do that so you mentally understand what the portions for your body and your goals look like. Yeah. And then even if you put the scale away and you never track again, you're not going to be right on the money.
Right.
But you won't be far off. I think we can agree that that's worthwhile for anyone.
100%. I've always shared. I've always gone back to that when I'll do the Hot Body meal plan or something and really actually getting my measuring cups out to make sure that I'm not going crazy. And it's always a good check because after even a year or so, if I haven't done that, I'm like, oh, I've been eating double the rice I need and double the chicken I need. It sneaks in. And so I think that 100%, even if it's a short period of time, some form, use your hand as a measure, use measuring cups, something to really check yourself is really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that even if you have concerns about it, you should at least just do that for yourself so you have a reference point.
Yeah.
And it really just going to unlock so much in your journey. So then, for me in my journey now, the most recent one where I lost 40 pounds, I gained a lot of lean mass. That for me was kicked off by doing exactly that. I got out a food scale for the first time and I started to understand.
That we've had in our cabinet for years.
Forever. Never used it. I literally thought it was like just for baking or like something like that.
No.
No. But you don't need anything fancy. We got it like $15 off Amazon or whatever. Totally fine. All you need to know is the grams. That's it. Yeah. And so for me, I was able to start weighing out some of these meals and it was shocking. Like that really set me off onto a path of, okay, this gives me some control. So that's I think that's the difference for me, maybe for guys in general, but having that control and that data and knowledge about this can shift one way or the other what I want to do. And it's really just become simple math now.
Yeah.
It's not about me guessing. And I think the guessing was the frustration was, I now eat a very set group of meals. I eat the same breakfast every day. I have the same 2 smoothies every day. And then lunch and dinners, I have probably 4 to 6 meals that we rotate through that are the most common.
Right. For anyone who's watched my meal prep videos on YouTube, they know I mix it up and make it a little fresh, but it's kind of the same staples in those. Yeah. And
for me, as somebody who's busy and has a lot going on, I love that because it takes the time that I would spend wondering if I should eat this or how do I make that or what can I put in this and what's that going to add up to. It takes all the guesswork out.
Yeah.
And it just makes it super simple for me. And I love everything I eat. People think, I think people hear that and go, oh, well, that must be a sad life you live. Yeah. And I would say to that, not at all. I absolutely love all the foods I eat and I can shift them to be whatever I want them to be. If I want to have tacos for lunch, done.
Right.
Easy. Right? If I want to have
burgers, we do, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
So find me the foods that I'm missing, you can't.
To your point, though, I think that time, and I don't want to go too deep down this, but I do think it's something that thinking back to to my old self, right? When I would be in an office or anywhere else, I wasn't doing any level of meal prepping, not even like one meal a day. The time I wasted trying to figure out, where am I going to go to lunch today? What should I do? And not to mention the money and then
Yeah.
all the extra calories that I didn't need, but just the time, like take the time part alone. That is valuable. That's like one thing we cannot get back, right? And so the amount of
Yeah.
time wasted thinking about food during the week is crazy. And I also think that it's allowed us to have even more like freedom and not guilt. And we'll talk more about guilt stuff later. But when going out on the weekends, because you're like, I know I'm locked in. I'm so locked in all week. So, like, whatever. Like, if I want to get a little crazy, it's fine.
Well, absolutely. And either it's a whatever, I'm just going to go for it and I don't worry about it, or it's I've had the meal structure down so pat that I can go build a meal
Totally.
at a restaurant easy.
You know how to adapt
It's
it
easy,
and-
right?
yeah.
But I would say too, I feel like the term meal prep is scary for people.
Yes.
I think that it generally, and for me it was all the time too, it feels like a bodybuilder thing. If like,
It does.
okay, we're putting everything in these Tupperwares and we're presetting everything.
Ugly boiled chicken.
Yeah. I think that it's important to explain how we meal prep. And if you watch, your videos on YouTube, then you know kind of what it looks like. But it's less about individually pre-packed containers, which can totally work. Like, especially if you're on the go, that's great.
Totally.
For us, as people that work from home, or even somebody that doesn't, it's prepping just a bunch of the staples.
Yes.
So a bunch of ground turkey, a bunch of chicken, a bunch of beef, a bunch of veggies, rice, etc. And then that makes it just super easy. Like now, I don't even think about it. Today, right? Went in the fridge, pulled out protein, pulled out the carbs,
Yeah.
pulled out some
like, I'm
veggies,
gonna make a taco bowl. Great.
and it's done.
And you like, especially for busy people, again, whether you're home or not, it saves so much time. Like making dinner for your family, all that. It's already like done. So you're gonna cook it at some point anyway. Just do it all at once. Save yourself doing that multiple times a week.
Give it a better name. Smart eating or
Smart eating preparation.
whatever makes you feel better about it. But I know that like it feels daunting,
Yeah.
and I feel like the comments we see a lot on videos is like, I hate meal prep, like I can't get into it. Like
I know, but the system I've created for us
Yes.
is so simple. Like it
Way
just makes
better.
it simple and makes it so you can still have foods that you love.
because if you see a bodybuilder girl or guy doing it online,
Yeah.
you're like, I get it. You look at that and go,
Yeah.
I don't want to. That's not my life, and
Yeah.
because it feels so regimented. And I don't think most people want to be that regimented, and I don't even want to be that regimented.
No, you're probably the most regimented normal person. I'd say you're not at the level of like if you're in like a competitor bodybuilding bikini competition kind of person, right? But you're really regimented.
Yeah.
But I think that allows you, that's why you're.
I'd say it depends on the goal, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think that, look, I'm always a big believer of meet people where they're at. If the most you can do is count calories and your goal is weight loss, I think that's a fine place to start. In my opinion, that will get you somewhere.
Yeah.
The importance of protein and carbs, though, is undersold by most people. And I think especially because the phrase calories in, calories out becomes so prevalent that people think that's all there is to it, which leads to this eat whatever you want as long as it's in, people say macros. What they mean is as long as it's in your calories.
Right.
Because nobody's out there tracking macros on a McDonald's burger
Right.
unless you're real serious.
Yeah.
So I think there's a slippery slope there. So I'd say, listen, if you're a beginner, just worry about getting the calories to a place that feels comfortable. I think it can be overwhelming to dig into protein and carbs a bit. But for me, if you have serious goals of weight loss, you want to see that number move faster, you want your body to be stronger and healthier, or if you're trying to add muscle, no, calories is certainly not enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I agree with most of what you're saying. I will say with all the research, especially in the last 10 years, probably that's come out for women. I think for men, straight calories can be a little bit easier, especially if weight loss is the goal in general. I think for women, macros become so crucial because of all of our hormonal fluctuations. So men, their testosterone levels, everything, like, what is it? A 24-hour window, right?
Yeah, it's a
24
straight,
hour.
like,
Yeah,
line.
straight line. Women, we're literally changing every single day. Every, like, up and down and over here, and estrogen's up and progesterone's down. Like, it's wild. And because of all that, the balance of fats and carbohydrates and proteins are so important. And I think for myself in the last, especially 5 years, really understanding that more and more, protein 100%, but the carbs and fats for our hormones too are just beyond important. And I don't think any of us knew it before more recently, because all of the data and all the research has been historically done with men until more recently. And so now we're learning all this about women, and it's really changing, I think, how even I look at it.
Yeah, but I think it's true for men too, and just in a different way, is we need to talk about the reality of the importance of getting the right amount of protein.
Yeah.
Both for weight loss and for lean muscle gain. Mm-hmm. 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Baseline.
Baseline. You need it.
Yeah.
You need it no matter what your goals are. It'll help you burn fat better. It'll help you add muscle. You essentially won't add muscle without it.
Yeah.
And then also, I think what guys tend to forget, or people, both forget it. Was made like 2 TikToks or Instagrams that I have ready for this that I'm going to post, because people say, like, oh, cut carbs. Women, I think, say it a lot for one reason, and men say it for another reason, or men eat too many carbs. We need carbs to fuel our bodies. You need them to fuel your workouts. It's just essential fuel.
Energy. That's where we get our energy.
And one of the reels I put together was, ways we say I'm not eating in 2025. And one of those is I'm cutting carbs.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't really help long term. And for men, we really need that to fuel gym workouts, to fuel, growth in our bodies. But people think that's a group that we can just let not be there.
No, you're right. So I think that's a good point, is for a baseline. So just to make this super easy, and there's lots of tools, but for your protein, about a gram of protein per pound of your current body weight or your ideal body weight. So if you're someone who, say you're 175 pounds and you're like, I probably, to be at a healthy weight, need to be more like 140, then need about 140 or so grams of protein. That's a really good place to start. All right, we're going to take a quick break for our trends timeout. We still haven't figured out how we're going to...
I feel like you had music last time.
I did like sound effects, huh? Yeah, someone had an idea of doing like a green flag and a red flag.
Oh, that's a
we
good
could
idea.
do that. But today we're going to play a little game with it, and it's going to be called Buy It or Block It.
All right.
So, like, are you into it? Do you like it? Or are you like not about it? Okay. And it'll be like quick. If you want to say something about it, you can. But
right.
Matcha.
Block it. I feel like it tastes like dirt. I don't drink coffee, so it's a kind of an alternative there, but I really don't enjoy it most of the time. It either tastes like dirt or sugar, so no.
I feel the same way. The only one I liked was actually our old Energy Boost flavor that had like the lemon, but I'm just not a matcha person.
Me either.
5 a.m. wake ups.
Definitely block it. I am not a morning person at all.
No, you're not.
I scrape for every last bit of sleep possible, so.
I buy it. I feel so productive. I get up, get my day done. It's great. Okay. Gummies. And by gummies, I should be more specific, like vitamins in gummy form.
Block it. I don't get it. I feel like
we tried to get it. We were investors in a company that had gummies for a minute, but not our...
9 times out of 10, they have added sugar in them for no purpose other than make the gummies taste good. And I feel like you can get it in capsule or powder form. Why not?
Yeah. The only reason I was on board is because it was like low sugar and they were ACV, which I know apple cider vinegar is hard for people to get.
Those made sense to me.
Right? They
Otherwise,
totally made sense.
No.
Most of the time, you're not getting actually enough of what you're looking for. Digital detox.
Buy it, except I don't know that I could do it. I think it's a great idea. Yeah. I think that there have been times even when we just go on a walk and I don't bring my phone, and it is really refreshing.
Yeah.
It's good for the brain. We probably could use more of it. With our jobs, it's pretty tough. Like there's no way I could do it for a day. And I don't know that's a good thing to say about myself, but I don't think I could do it.
I love it so much. I agree though. And I like anytime I take those I'm never like, oh, I'm taking a day off social media. Like that's just not me. Because I have a community that I want to be here
If
for
you
all
can
the
do
time.
it, good for you.
But like when it's a really important moment or something, obviously we
Yeah.
we take baby detoxes.
Yes, of course.
That's a game.
That's the game. All
That's the
right.
game for today.
And
We
that
keep
was
it
trends.
short and simple.
That was trends timeout.
Trends time
There we
out.
go.
All right, so we talked a little bit about intuitive eating and how without that education and structure, like it's not going to help you reach your goals. It can be a wonderful way to kind of maintain. I think once you have a healthy relationship with food, you're in a place of more maintenance. I think intuitive eating is incredible.
Yeah, and I'll reference a TikTok I saw that I commented on that had a lot of replies to it in general, and it was a creator saying, basically that they have an amazing physique and that you don't need to track your macros, you don't need to track your calories. She just intuitively eats. And my reply to that was, this is misleading. And what I meant is that yes, if you have a really strong foundation in what your baseline is,
And
what
good
your
genetics.
and good genetics, but what your maintenance calories look
Yeah.
like, and then now you know over time of tracking
Yeah.
exactly where you should be. At some point, I think yes, you can relinquish that tracking and you can maintain an incredible physique and you don't have to track. But we're not being honest with everyone because what we're not saying is you've already learned
Right.
what it looks like.
100%.
And so I think that's just like, I can't stand when people do that because they give somebody who's at starting point one the idea that you can just not have any clue
Yeah.
and you just eat with what your body tells you and you're going to be fine. No, you just won't look like that. And we
No.
need to realize that.
And it breaks my heart as someone who struggled for so long with my weight because everyone listening who struggled with their weight knows it's so much more than a physical thing. It
Yeah.
is so mental. It's so emotional. It breaks you down. Like, I'm going to cry talking about it. But I think that, like, when I see that stuff, it is so hard because being in that place where you're so frustrated, so desperate to figure it out and understand, you feel like you've done all the things. You've tried the tracking, you've done this, like, and nothing's clicking. I think that that's where it's so important to figure out like what's going to make sense for you long term, right? But to be able to get to a place where you feel empowered, and that's where I think my mindset shift has changed too, where when I lost all my weight, I lost my weight, but I didn't have like the physique. I didn't have abs, I didn't have muscles showing necessarily. I lost a lot of weight, but it took education and time, and that's when I dove into, becoming a trainer and a nutritionist to understand like, oh, this is how my plate should be built. This is how I should be eating. Like this is the food that's really going to help create change and be sustainable. And until I learned that, it was a place of confusion.
Knowledge is truly power in this case. Yeah. It is. And yes, like I said, in my most recent journey, losing 40 pounds, understanding the math set me free. Mm-hmm. And I get it. For some people, that can be detrimental because they obsess over it.
Yeah.
And yeah, like in some ways, I am obsessed with it, but I'm at peace with it. Because it doesn't dictate me doing one thing or another.
Yeah.
It dictates only the simple reality of me doing what is best for my body and my goals. And that's how I approach it.
Yeah.
I look at it that way of like, it doesn't tell me you can't do this. My goals are more important to me personally. This is just my perspective. My goals are more important to me than eating any specific food or any specific amount of food. So when I think about it, I go, okay, I don't see this as restriction. It doesn't tell me I can't have this.
Yeah.
All it does is guide me to the food setup that is going to be best for what I want to do. And it's just like, listen, what's the most important thing to you? We can't have it all.
Right.
There's sacrifices that have to be made. And there's also, I think, listen, there is levels to this, people. There are levels. You do not have to be at any certain physique level. You can be at whatever level you want to be. Well, if you want to be in good shape, that eating looks very different than somebody that wants to be absolutely shredded, snatched, whatever.
And
it's just different.
Totally. And I think like, we've always talked about, you are like a 0 to 500, like, and that's just your personality, and anything you care about, anything you get into, you do. And I think that like that, of course, your point, it's not like, oh, you have to do this to like get shredded in a 6-pack, but I think that that's where it's like having that healthy mindset. I was not at a place back then where it would have been healthy for me to track, and I didn't have the knowledge to know how to do it in a healthy way. I think, fast forward a decade later, now for me, it is similar where the only thing I really track is my protein, and I like make sure that I'm getting the protein that I want every single day and hitting that goal because I know how much carbs and fats I'm eating throughout the day. But that's after so long of educating.
Well, and you've also built a meal plan that makes it super simple for women,
Yes.
that takes a lot of the need to track out,
Yeah.
and sets a like really healthy but effective baseline. That to me is like my favorite thing about what you've created and the
Thanks.
brand that we have is like, we also want to make this where if you do have those struggles, that we can give you something that just helps you not have to worry about doing it, but still get the results as if you were.
Well, and that was the whole goal with that meal plan, was to kind of bridge the gap between crazy diet culture and crazy tracking and intuitive eating. So it's all laid out for you.
Yeah.
You measure your cup and whatever, but it's laid out so it's easy for you to start to learn how to fuel your body, but you're hitting a really good protein target and everything else.
The food we eat is obviously going to be a big part of the results that we see, but it's only one of many indicators of, are we reaching our goals? Mm-hmm. Another one that I think goes hand in hand with your nutrition and obviously your workouts is use of the scale.
Yeah.
Right? And like we're talking about, kind of the mental side of health and fitness.
Weighing your food, weighing your body. They go
right.
hand.
So weighing your food, weighing your body. We've established that some level of weighing your food and getting a baseline structure is really important. Mm-hmm. But I think that the way people use the scale is like a whole different thing. So you've had a lot of experience with this. I've experienced this. We do it differently, maybe even still today a bit, but we're closer. What's your experience with the scale? How does it dictate your mental well-being? And do you think people need to be weighing themselves every day?
Oh,
or
so
how
I have
often,
a lot of feelings.
How
about
often
the scale.
should somebody weigh themselves?
Yeah, I have a lot of scale feelings. So because of that tortured girl, like that version of me that struggled so much, I for so long have been so anti-scale. And I for a long time didn't weigh. I'd weigh myself maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah, never really.
Never really.
Yeah.
Unless I had like a really specific goal. The most I've ever weighed myself in the last 10 years was when I was pregnant and I was going to the doctor and like he was weighing me to make sure I was healthy weight, right? So for me, I think I really had to personally, because it was like deep wounds. I had to completely let go of that and go off of like, how are my clothes fitting? How do I feel about my body? Photos, measurements.
But take a step back. Like, why does the scale do that to you? Or why did it control your emotions so much?
Because as women especially, men don't experience this quite as much, and we've talked a lot about this, our weight fluctuates so wildly day to day, week to week. It is completely normal for a woman to step on the scale one day and have one weight and be 5 pounds up the next day, and 3 pounds down the next day, and 4 pounds up. It's totally normal. And although I logically know that now, back then I didn't. And it was just this wild game when you're calorie counting, you're doing all this crazy stuff, and then the scale's not moving or it's jumping up. And none of it made sense.
And at that time, though, my guess is that you were weighing yourself semi-frequently. Like once a week, once a month?
There were times where I would weigh myself every single day because I was obsessed, even though it made me angry. And then there were times where it was, just randomly. Like I would start and then I would go on a crazy diet. So then I'd weigh myself at the end of the 2 weeks. And
do you think that's most people?
Probably.
Infrequent.
Yeah.
But frequent enough to be damaging.
Frequent enough to be damaging, but infrequent enough to not actually have a true picture of what's happening in your body.
And so, okay, we'll get to that. But go on. We'll get to why that happens.
Okay, so then now, it's been a long time. I've been very happy with this like place of just balance and intuitive eating and just kind of floating along for a while until about probably the last year, I'd say, like really coming out of those first 2 years postpartum, which sounds like a long time, but for women, it takes like 2 years to get our hormones back normal.
And by the way, you had the most incredible postpartum body. Like the amount of weight you gained was so healthy, but like super manageable. And then after that, just those, I think it was maybe 6 months, the way that you came back from that, I mean, I just have to say, it was so impressive.
Thanks.
And I think that is hard. It is harder than people think.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people see a postpartum transformation, say, oh, you just lost the baby weight. But like that is legitimately really difficult to do. And I was just so proud and impressed with how you did that. So I just
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean that was the consistency all the years prior, staying consistent during, and then doing what I could after, right? But so I think my point is more recently I've been like, oh wait, like and honestly inspired from a lot from you is being like I what I'm doing is hard, but I'm not pushing myself. I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
oh, totally.
My workouts were still always hard, but I was comfortable in the amount of weight I was using for my move workouts. And like I would do those and use the same weights all the time. And I wasn't pushing myself the way I tell everyone else to continue to progressively overload. Cause I'm like, I'm going heavy. I'm at a point, this whatever. And so I think more recently gotten to a point where I've really wanted to see changes in body composition and push myself in a different way. And so now I've had to embrace the scale a little bit more to have a true understanding of patterns over time versus just like, how do I feel today?
Right. Because our body naturally wants to find comfort.
Yes.
That's what it's wired to do. Mm-hmm. And even when you are doing something challenging, like lifting a good amount of weight, your body will tell you and your mind will tell you, oh yeah, this is hard and stay right here.
Yeah.
And so it seems like and feels good to say, yeah, no, I'm at this point where I'm doing this hard workout, and that is hard, and it's hard for most people.
Right.
What we forget about is it was hard in week 1, it was hard in week 2, it was hard in week 3, and it's still going to always be a little hard, but
I'm not changing anymore.
Not changing anything.
Yeah.
And it's really easy, even for my journey, realizing when you're stuck in a spot like that. It's like very eye-opening. It's hard because I remember feeling like, dude, you just wasted like 5 weeks. Like, what were you doing?
Well,
but it's so easy to let your mind take over and trick you.
It is. And especially when you get to a place where I was at a place where I'm like, I'm happy with my body. You know what I mean? Like and you push yourself so hard and you're just kind of consistent in a place. And I'm like, well, I'm good. But then I realized like, well, I'm not growing. I'm not challenging myself anymore, and it's nice to be comfortable, but I wanted that push for myself right now. So going back to the question of the scale, so now I have been weighing myself more consistently, although I usually take my period week off because I know I'm just going to be annoyed, and so I just am like, I'm skipping this week. But weighing myself consistently, same time of day, first thing in the morning, without drinking anything, whatever, so that I can have that trend and see over time, week over week, kind of where are things going. But I had to get to a place mentally that I understand that my weight might go up and down 3 or 5 pounds. That doesn't mean I'm gaining 3 or 5 pounds of fat, because I know what I'm doing is working and I trust the process. But I have to be there mentally.
Totally. And let's go back to, so I think to make sure people understand, because the mental destruction of the scale, I think, is often caused by the infrequent weighing, right?
Yeah.
And so let's think of it this way. When you weigh your body, you're going to see fluctuations every single day, like you were saying. Some of it's going to be water, some of that's going to be changing your body, some of it's muscle, right? Or it's fat. But it's going to fluctuate for a variety of reasons. If you weigh yourself on Monday, and then on Friday, and then on Sunday, and then the next week on Tuesday, on Wednesday, in
the morning, at night.
If you weigh yourself at all these random days and times, you're going to get random readings.
Yeah.
And how do you know that you're not just hitting every bogey possible?
Totally. You have undigested food. You haven't gone to the bathroom. You went out to eat, just.
So you might be in a better place than you think.
Yeah.
And you don't know that because you're only weighing on very random occasions.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, if you're ready to go there, you have to be willing to take the infrequency out of it and get frequent with it. Because you and I both look at what is our average weight for the week.
Yeah.
That tells the story. If we just take Monday and say, that's my weight. Well, I've seen many a times my weight on Monday is 2 pounds more than my average weight for the week.
Yeah.
But I'm using the average weight for the week because that is the real number that you should be looking at.
So here's my kind of scale of what to do. If you are not in a place where you feel like you truly are like accepting that your weight is going to go up and down and whatever, and you don't think it's good for you, like I used to, I knew it was not good for me, don't weigh yourself at all. Go off photos, go off measurements, lock in on your macros, make sure you're eating the right food, and just trust the process.
Yep.
Start there. Step 2, you're like, okay, I want to have some gauge. Well, then pick a day of the month that you know in your cycle. For women, you know it's, during ovulation or something when you're going to get the truest reading. Pick that day every month and same time, first thing in the morning, whatever, to have some idea that you're not all of a sudden like in some crazy place. But you want the circumstances to be similar.
And like you say, way first thing in the morning, please don't weigh in the afternoon, or you just don't do it.
But like just know, like there might be a little bit of fluctuation, but take the photos, take the measure photos. That is going to give you the best picture. I mean, you've seen mine, you've seen Ryan's.
If you haven't seen my 52-week,
he takes them every Monday morning.
I take them every Monday morning. I've taken them every Monday morning for the last year and a half. Just having those photos to watch them go week by week, boom, 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 and the body totally change, that alone is worth doing. Yeah. But without that, you can't fully appreciate the work you do. It's so valuable.
And also realize this has like become a hobby for us too.
Totally.
It's not just like, oh, gotta get my work in to whatever. It's like a whole different level. So I don't expect that of anyone. But I think
though, I'm sorry, and real quick, I was gonna say, if you don't need to take them every week, like once a month is totally fine. And I think you'll be so thrilled taking them once a month. If you're really working, you will see it in the visuals of the photos. 100%. Week to week, it's like very small changes. So for a lot of people,
every 4 weeks.
A lot of people, that's not going to be great, but once a month.
Totally, 100%. And that's why when we do challenges, I always tell you girls to take them in the beginning, take them in the end, because you'll be shocked and you will have the most true. You look in the mirror, you're not going to see it because we all have some level of body dysmorphia, I think. But like those photos are going to tell a true story.
How many times do we have girls that do challenges say, I almost didn't submit because I didn't think I made any progress. And then they took the photos and were like, are you kidding me?
Especially because some of them don't weigh themselves. Same thing, right? Yeah. Or they're like, oh, I only lost 3 pounds. But in the photo, you're like, I would have guessed you lost 10. Because that's how crazy it can be when body recomp is happening, doing the programs and everything. But yeah, so either don't weigh yourself, right? Once a month as just a general check-in to make sure there's not some wild thing happening where all of a sudden you're like 10 pounds up, right? Or you got to fully go in if you're in it and you feel like you're in a healthy place mentally to do it every day, to track, to take that weekly average, meaning if you measure or you weigh yourself every day, you add up those numbers for the 7 days of the week, divided by 7, and that's your average where you are generally sitting.
Yeah. And for me, that is a big help. I think that is the only way to do it if you're really serious about the goals. Like if you're not looking to like make huge progress, or you don't have a serious amount of weight to lose or whatever.
I just need to lose some fat. Like
so there's levels to that. I agree with all of that. I think the other thing that's been really helpful for me is knowing that the scale is often very inaccurate in certain ways, especially if you have a smart scale like we do. Like look, the weight's always going to be the weight. That's not, people say, oh, the scale's not accurate. I'm like, well, okay, it's weighing your body. It is accurate, but it may not be weighing all the things you think it's weighing when you're seeing a body fat reading. And that's something I look at every day, but there are other ways to get this. If you are serious about goals, if you want to go next level, DEXA scans, I think, are amazing, not just because they give you all of the information. It's a really good thing for me mentally, knowing that 6 months is kind of my frequency now that I'm doing full body DEXA scans, which look at your true body fat percentage, your lean muscle mass, and a variety of other things in your body. That's my guiding truth light. So I don't worry about what the scale says because I know that the body fat on there is going to be real. And so it allows me to I'm still annoyed when the body fat goes the wrong way on the scale, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going in the right direction. I think having other sources of truth are really good if you want to go to that next level.
And can we rewind a little bit? I don't know how we have not said this yet. I feel like we might even need to just jump this into the front of this scale conversation. But if you have a regular scale at home, all scales, like if you have smart scales, body fat, all that stuff, like Ryan said, are going to vary. If you have a regular scale at home and you're only seeing one number on that scale, please know, like we said, that one number can not only wildly change every day, but it's only telling part of your story. You don't have any information. Did you gain muscle? Did you lose fat? Are you increasing water retention? You don't know any of that. So at a minimum, try to get a smart scale, which won't be accurate compared to a DEXA, but it'll be accurate compared to itself. So at least you have like that baseline to go off of, and you'll have some understanding of muscle mass increasing, fat decreasing, and what's happening in your body.
And I think smart scales, like the best part besides just regular weight is probably water. Because I feel like that's a little bit more accurate on the tracking side than anything else. And if you're really retaining water at a certain point, like you kind of want to know that, and it tells the story.
Yeah. Okay, so I know we kind of got a little bit off macros and calories and things talking about the scale, but I think they all go hand in hand. But one thing that we mentioned in the beginning that I really think is important to talk about is food guilt.
Yeah.
And we can keep this brief. But I've had a big realization about this recently, because for so long there was this idea of like, don't feel guilty. Like if you go have a night out, whatever, don't feel guilty, don't feel guilty. And there's some truth to that. Like, don't beat yourself up over it. Like, don't sit on that, let that spiral you into an unhealthy week just because you had a bad day. Like, it happens, or because you chose to have a little extra fun, right? That happens. But what I realized recently, and just like came so clear to me, is that guilt, if you personally feel guilt about something, that's a red flag. That is a signal to yourself that that choice, that decision, whatever you did, does not align with the person you're trying to become or the person you want to become. So going out and, having 10 cocktails and eating a pizza in and of itself, well, maybe it's not healthy, but in and of itself is not a bad thing that you should feel guilty about. But if you do feel guilty, that's because like you don't want to be the person that does that. Your inside of you, that doesn't align with who you're trying to be. So it's okay to feel guilty. That should be like oh wow, nope, you know what? That's not me. I don't want that. So I recognize it, I acknowledge it. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to sit in it. But I think it's okay to feel that.
Someone that doesn't want to lose weight, that doesn't have goals that they're working towards, they don't feel guilty about doing that. So are you that person? Or are you the person that does feel guilty about it? And if you do, like you said, there's a reason why.
Right.
And it's all about, it's accountability, right?
Totally.
That's the guilt, right, that we know is our mind's way of telling us, you told me this isn't what you want, yet here we are.
Right.
And how do you reconcile that? Well, you feel bad.
Right.
But I think it's a great point. Don't feel bad about it. Let it empower you. Let it motivate you to be, hey, actually, I'm a different person than this.
And there's no point in feeling guilty if you're not going to actually change. So like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that you can like say I'm like
you're
sorry to yourself, but if you're not changing, then like
that's when I say to you, boo-hoo. Okay. I don't feel bad for you in that position because you're doing it to yourself.
Right.
But if you do it, I agree. Don't feel bad about it afterwards. There's no point in feeling bad. It does. One night of this, one day of this, 2 days of this does not derail a weight loss journey, a fitness journey at all.
If
you go back on plan.
Right.
And you don't need to overcompensate for it. You don't need to eat 500 less calories the next day. No, just go right back to the plan.
But just know that guilt that's a good thing. It's kind of a good thing. Yeah, it's a voice inside of you. Don't let anyone else make you feel guilty if you don't, and don't put that projected on someone else. But if you feel that in your soul, take that as a sign.
If someone else is making you feel guilty, is because I often think it's because they are not the person that would actually make the good choice. And they want to make you feel bad for even thinking about 100%. Making that bad choice. That's a whole nother weird thing.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about, and we should talk about more friends and weight loss and all of that.
We could go on for hours.
That's another episode, I think.
All right, well, let's wrap this one up. You guys, it's been so much fun. If you have any more questions or just stories that you want to share, drop them in the comments here. If you're listening on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, make sure you leave a review and subscribe to our podcast. It would mean so much to us and help other people find this Wellness Interrupted.
And if you have any questions or need help on your journey, Katie and I's DMs are always open on Instagram, so you can DM us at Love Sweat Fitness and at Ryan Dunlop. We're always there for you.
All right. Love you guys. Bye.